Have you ever noticed how life seems to become clearer after 70? It's as if, suddenly, the priorities that once took up so much space in our minds begin to rearrange themselves on their own. In early adulthood, we were driven by an almost uncontrollable need to be surrounded by people. Friendships were like trophies, each one representing a part of our social identity. But something magical happens as we grow older. We realize that true freedom doesn't come from collecting people around us, but from carefully choosing where to place our energy. And today, we're going to explore exactly that. Why, after 70, you no longer need many friends to live a full, rich, and most of all, genuinely happy life. Imagine that your life is a house. Over the years, you've accumulated furniture, decorations, and objects that once felt essential. Some were gifts from friends, others bought in a rush, and some inherited without ever questioning whether you truly wanted them. Now, with more experience and clarity, you begin to look at that house with new eyes, and you realize less is more. There's no longer a need to fill every empty space. The same happens with friendships. Maturity reveals that it's not the number of people around you that matters, but the quality of what each relationship adds, or doesn't add, to your life. After 70, you finally understand that maintaining friendships out of obligation is like carrying heavy furniture from one room to another, never quite finding comfort. Let's take a look at the story of Teresa, a 75-year-old woman who spent most of her social life trying to please others. For decades, she believed that a busy schedule full of commitments was a sign of success and happiness. Birthdays, coffee dates, endless phone calls. Teresa was the glue that held her groups together. But something began to shift after her last birthday. As she looked around, she realized that although she was surrounded by people, she felt lonelier than ever. So she decided to do an experiment. For 3 months, she would only respond to messages and invitations that genuinely brought her joy. The result was transformative. Yes, the gatherings became rarer, but also infinitely more meaningful. Teresa learned that true companionship isn't about physical presence, but about the sincere connection you share. Teresa's transformation is not an isolated case. Many people, after 70, realize that clinging to lukewarm, superficial friendships, or ones sustained only by old memories, drains vital energy that could be used for something far more precious: self-care and the pursuit of true happiness. When we're young, there's an almost irrational fear of being alone, as if silence were something to be avoided at all costs. But the truth that maturity teaches us is that silence can be the best of friends. It demands nothing, expects nothing, never disappoints. It simply offers space. Space for you to listen to yourself, perhaps for the first time in a very long time. It's curious how society values the number of social connections, as if more always meant better. Social media, long contact lists, endless groups. But after 70, you're given a gift that few are brave enough to accept: the right to simplify. You begin to see that there is greatness in simplicity, that the depth of 1 or 2 good conversations outweighs dozens of empty interactions. And most of all, you understand that the best relationship you can nurture is the one you have with yourself. Because when you become your own best friend, you eliminate the anxiety of constantly seeking external validation. If we look at life as a long journey, we might say that in the early years, we were obsessed with collecting souvenirs. We wanted memories from every place, every person. But there comes a time, somewhere around 70, when we've collected enough. We no longer need full suitcases to feel that the trip was meaningful. On the contrary, the lighter we are, the more we enjoy the path. That lightness is a choice, a quiet wisdom that many take a lifetime to discover. Letting go of friendships that no longer make sense is part of that process. And far from being an act of selfishness, it is an act of deep self-love. And if you still have doubts about whether this choice is right for you, think about how many times you've forced yourself to maintain a friendship just because of shared history, not because of present-day reality. Think of how many times you accepted invitations you didn't want to accept, just so you wouldn't hurt someone else, all while ignoring the silent discomfort inside yourself. After 70, it's time to listen to that discomfort, to honor your feelings, and to value what you want, not what others expect of you. It's not about abruptly cutting ties, but gently allowing only the connections that still resonate with your truth to remain. We are only beginning this journey of rediscovery. In the next stage, we're going to dive even deeper and explore how emotional autonomy becomes the greatest gift you can give yourself at this stage of life. We'll also see how cultivating your own company can open doors to experiences and joys you may never have imagined. So stay with me, because the best is yet to come. By embracing this new phase of life, where simplicity becomes your new luxury, you begin to notice something even deeper: emotional autonomy. After the age of 70, true freedom isn't found in who you can keep around, but in who you are when you're alone. The ability to be at peace with yourself is a rare skill, one that many spend their entire lives trying to develop, but which becomes more accessible when you leave behind the social pressure of needing constant acceptance. Emotional autonomy is what transforms loneliness into solitude, a state of appreciation and presence with oneself, where time ceases to be a burden and becomes a gift to nurture your own dreams, reflections, and passions. Let's imagine your mind as a garden. For many years, you may have allowed others to plant whatever they wanted in this soil: expectations, judgments, obligations. And now, finally, it's time to tend to that garden with your own hands, to choose carefully what to plant: new ideas, new hobbies, new ways of seeing the world. When you stop seeking validation from others and turn your gaze inward, you begin to bloom in a way that even surprises yourself. And it's in this blossoming that we discover that our best company is not found in the faces around us, but in the peace we feel simply by being with the person we have become. Many people at this stage of life discover talents and passions they had never explored before, precisely because now there is internal space for them. Painting, writing, walking, learning a new language, starting meditation or gardening practices, all of this stops being something you didn't have time for and becomes the foundation of your new routine. And look how interesting! By investing in yourself, you naturally begin to attract people who share that same energy. Relationships become more genuine, based not on obligation or shared history, but on present-day affinity, on the pure joy of sharing moments of mutual growth. By developing this emotional autonomy, you also strengthen your ability to establish healthy boundaries. It's no longer necessary to say yes to everything to be liked. You no longer need to explain or justify every choice you make. Learning to say no without guilt is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. And even more importantly, you realize that those who truly matter will understand your no as an act of self-love, not as a rejection. Being available for yourself becomes a priority because you understand that your energy is too precious to be wasted on relationships that don't reciprocate, that don't build you up, that don't vibrate at the same frequency as yours. With this new mindset, every day begins to be lived with more purpose, Mornings are no longer filled with automatic commitments. They become opportunities to create, to feel, to be. The burden of social masks falls away. You no longer have to fake enthusiasm where there is none, nor force yourself to fit into spaces that do not honor who you have become. After 70, a quiet strength is born, the courage to be fully authentic. And that authenticity is liberating, not just for you, but for everyone around you. You become a beacon of inspiration, showing that it's possible to live lightly, with dignity, and above all, with genuine joy. The beauty of this phase lies in realizing that by simplifying your relationships, you also simplify your life. Fewer expectations, fewer frustrations, more presence, and more truth. It's in this pressure-free space that you find the fulfillment many search for their whole lives. And perhaps, deep down, this is the greatest achievement. Discovering that the essential was always within you, silent, just waiting for the right moment to bloom. And now we reach the final stage of this journey, a journey that is not just about aging, but about awakening. An awakening to a truth that few dare to face, that after 70, you don't need a lot of friends to live well. In fact, you might not even need them at all. What you truly need is yourself. In this last part, let's conclude our conversation with some deep reflections on how this phase of life can surprisingly become the most authentic, free, and meaningful of all, and how letting go of worn-out friendships can open space for a new and powerful form of connection, with your own essence. Let's start by talking about something that is rarely said out loud. You can live a full, rich, and spiritually nourished life without relying on a constant social network. The world has taught us that loneliness is synonymous with sadness, that not having many friends is a failure, that being alone is a problem to be fixed. But what many fail to realize is that there's a huge difference between being alone and feeling lonely. The first is a choice. The second, a feeling. And after 70, this distinction becomes clearer than ever. Many people report that it was only when they got older that they truly understood that silence is not empty. It is full of answers. And that not having to divide themselves among social commitments, others' expectations, and social masks can be a gift disguised as simplicity. Take the example of Rosanna, a 79-year-old woman who spent most of her life being the link between her friends. The hostess, the counselor, the one who made the calls, organized the gatherings, remembered the birthdays. For decades, this gave meaning to her existence. But over time, she realized that few of those bonds were truly reciprocal. When she stopped initiating conversations, many of them went silent. When she stopped scheduling get-togethers, no one else did. At first, she felt a deep pain, as if she had been forgotten. But after a while, something curious happened. She began to feel free. For the first time, Rosanna could use her Sundays to rest, not to host visitors. She rediscovered painting, something she had loved in her youth but had set aside. Her home filled with canvases, colors, and peace. She realized she had spent years living for others, and that now, finally, she was living for herself. And this is the reality for many people at this stage of life. When children grow up, careers end, and the pace slows down, there is a rare opportunity to reconnect with who you truly are. It's a return to your essence. And what might seem like loneliness at first glance is, in fact, space. Space to breathe, reflect, care for your health, your mind, your spirit. And when you learn to fill that space with things that truly nourish you, reading, art, gardening, silence, contemplation, spirituality, You realize that you no longer need relationships that only existed to fill a void, because now that void no longer exists. Of course, this doesn't mean you should cut all ties. It's not about rejecting the world, but rather about being more selective about what enters your life, about keeping only the connections that are light, nurturing, sincere, those that don't require constant effort to maintain. Sometimes, a single true friendship is worth more than 20 frequent contacts. Sometimes the best conversation you will have in a day will be with yourself, during a silent walk through a garden, or sitting on your porch, watching time pass. And that's perfectly okay. Reaching 70, 75, or 80 doesn't have to be a phase of loss. It can be a phase of revelation. The moment when you finally understand what is essential and what was just noise. The moment when you free yourself from the need to please, to be accepted, to fit in. The moment when you give yourself permission to live with more authenticity than ever before. It's a kind of silent rebirth, where you no longer need to prove yourself, where you already know who you are. And that is enough. It might be difficult at first. You might miss the movement, the voices, the laughter that once filled your days. But over time, you will discover that peace has a sound of its own, that the company of your own mind can be richer than any empty conversation, that the pleasure of taking care of yourself calmly and intentionally is one of life's greatest luxuries. And that, ultimately, it's not the number of friends that defines the quality of your life, but rather how much peace you have with who you have become. So, if you've made it this far, know one thing. You are not alone. There is an entire generation rediscovering the value of silence, freedom, and solitude. A generation that understands that living well after 70 is not about having a packed schedule, but about having a light life. And if this resonated with you, I invite you to leave a comment down below sharing what touched you the most in this video. Your experience might inspire others to see this phase of life through new eyes. And of course, if this content helped you in any way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. This way, you will continue receiving reflections like this, created with care and respect for those who, like you, understand that living well has no age. It has intention. Thank you for being here, and see you in the next video. D20